The first time Olivia Carrington saw him, he was standing in the rain, holding a little girl's pink umbrella. Not for himself, but for the small child clinging to his leg. The Billionaire hotel lobby gleamed behind them, a place of crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and people who'd never known what it meant to go to bed hungry. Yet there he stood, Ethan Miles, a single dad in worn jeans and a shirt that had clearly been ironed with love rather than pressed by a maid. His hair was slightly damp, his eyes tired yet alive with a quiet strength that could melt even the coldest heart. No one knew then that this man, who barely had enough to buy a cup of coffee, would soon turn the whole ballroom upside down with 5 words that would change everything. Pretend you're my husband tonight. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that touch the soul, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's spread warmth where the world has gone cold. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Olivia Carrington, heir to the Carrington Empire, a billion-dollar hotel chain, was hosting her charity gala, surrounded by socialites, press cameras, and the illusion of perfection. But inside, she was breaking. Just a week earlier, the man she'd been engaged to marry, a powerful investor, had betrayed her, leaking private information about her foundation to ruin her reputation. The tabloids had feasted on it. Her father had scolded her for trusting love. And tonight, the press was watching, waiting to see if Olivia Carrington had fallen or would rise. She wasn't ready to be seen as weak. Not yet. Not ever. But as she stepped outside the hotel for a breath of air before facing the cameras again, she saw a little girl crying near the fountain. Her dress was muddy, her shoe broken, and her tiny hands trembled as she tried to scoop up the pieces of a wilted bouquet. Olivia's heart cracked, not from pity, but recognition. The girl's eyes, so pure, so desperate, mirrored the same loneliness she'd been hiding. Then came Ethan, rushing forward with an apologetic tone, bending down to fix the girl's shoe. "I told you we shouldn't have run, sweetheart," he whispered gently. He looked up and froze when he saw Olivia standing there, a billionaire in a glittering gold gown, her eyes filled with both power and pain. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "My daughter just wanted to see the fountain. We didn't mean to intrude." Olivia smiled faintly. "You're not intruding." She glanced at the girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Leela," the little one whispered, still clutching her wilted flowers. Olivia crouched down. "They're beautiful, Leela. Did you pick them for someone special?" "For my mom," Leela said. "But she's in heaven now." Something inside Olivia broke completely then. The carefully painted walls she'd built around her grief. She remembered her own mother's funeral, how she'd stared at the lilies that wilted before they reached the grave. She stood up quickly, hiding the moisture in her eyes, and just as she turned to leave, a loud voice echoed behind her, that of her ex-fiancé, arrogant and smug. Well, Olivia Carrington. Didn't think you'd show up tonight without a date." "Oh wait, you couldn't buy one." His words were sharp, cruel, meant to humiliate her before the waiting crowd that had now gathered by the entrance. Olivia froze. Cameras turned, reporters whispered. She felt that sting again, the one of being small, cornered, exposed. And then, before anyone could blink, Ethan Miles stepped forward, his hand gently finding hers. His voice was calm, steady, yet carried the authority of a man who'd known hardship. "Actually," he said firmly, meeting every pair of watching eyes, "she didn't come alone. I'm her husband." The crowd gasped. The ex-fiancé's smirk vanished. Olivia's heart nearly stopped. For a second, she didn't breathe, until she saw Leela tugging at her dress and whispering, "Daddy said always protect people who are kind." Olivia played along. She had to. Cameras were flashing, questions flying, and yet something about Ethan's quiet bravery made her feel safe. She slipped her hand into his, nodded softly, and said, "Yes, my husband." That was how the charade began. Inside the ballroom, every whisper seemed to slice through the air like glass. People asked how long they'd been married, where they met, how they kept their relationship out of the press. Olivia answered with grace, Ethan with humble smiles. Leela clung to her father's arm, watching everyone with wide, curious eyes. When the orchestra began to play, Olivia turned to him, her voice low. "Why did you do that?" Ethan hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Because I know what it's like to stand alone in a room full of people waiting for you to fall." She stared at him. He wasn't just kind. He understood. The man before her wasn't saving her for fame or money. He was saving her because he couldn't stand to see anyone humiliated like that. As the night went on, something in Olivia began to shift. She had spent her whole life surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Money, influence, status. But here was a man who had nothing to give except sincerity, and somehow it was worth more than all her wealth combined. Later that night, as the ballroom lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, Olivia found Ethan and Leela sitting near the dessert table, sharing a slice of cake. Leela offered her a piece shyly. "Daddy says you looked sad tonight. Cake makes sad people happy." Olivia laughed through the tears she hadn't realized were there. "Then I guess I'll need a big piece." Over the next few days, their paths kept crossing. Olivia invited them to stay in one of her hotel suites for a few nights as thanks for their help. Ethan refused at first, but when he realized Leela was getting sick from the cold nights in their car, he reluctantly agreed. Olivia found herself drawn to them. The laughter they shared, the way Ethan read bedtime stories with voices for each character, the way Leela hugged her like she'd known her forever. One afternoon, Olivia overheard a conversation between Ethan and his daughter. "Daddy," Leela said softly, "do you think Miss Olivia's heart hurts like mine did when Mommy left?" Ethan knelt down beside her. "Maybe, sweetheart. But that means we can help her heal, too." That simple sentence stayed with Olivia all night. For years she'd built walls to protect herself from betrayal, but somehow, this little girl and her father were gently knocking them down. Then came the storm, both literal and emotional. The same ex-fiancé humiliated at the gala, decided to take revenge. He told the press that Olivia had hired an actor to pose as her husband. Photos of Ethan in his worn clothes flooded social media, mocking her for dating a broke single dad. The scandal spread like wildfire. Her father was furious. "You've embarrassed the family name, Olivia! That man is beneath you." But Olivia stood her ground. For the first time, she didn't hide. "He's more of a man than anyone I've ever met." When Ethan found out about the chaos, he packed their things quietly. "We'll leave tonight," he said, his voice low but trembling. "You don't owe us anything. We just made things harder for you." Olivia grabbed his hand before he could leave. "You gave me back something no one else could, Ethan, honesty. Don't walk away now." For a long moment, they just stood there. The billionaire and the single dad, bound not by class or fame, but by the raw human truth of needing one another. The next morning, Olivia held a press conference. Cameras rolled, microphones pointed, and reporters waited for her denial. But instead, she smiled and said, "You want to know the truth? He's not an actor. He's not a hired hand. He's the man who reminded me that kindness still exists in a world obsessed with appearances. And I'd rather stand beside a man like that than anyone who wears a suit and sells his soul." The crowd went silent. Then, slowly, applause began. Even through the glare of the lights, Olivia could see Ethan standing at the edge of the stage, holding Leela, his eyes shining with disbelief. A few months later, Olivia Carrington's gala became something else entirely. Not a show of wealth, but a night dedicated to single parents, widows, and children who'd lost everything. Ethan helped organize it. Leela danced under the same chandelier that once glimmered above cruel gossip, and when the press asked if the husband story was true, Olivia simply smiled and said, "It began as pretend, but the best things in life usually do." That night, as the city lights glowed through the ballroom windows, Ethan turned to her. "You sure you're ready for this?" She nodded, smiling through tears. "I've never been more sure." And as Leela giggled between them, holding both their hands, Olivia realized something she'd never thought possible. Sometimes fate doesn't arrive with grand gestures or luxury cars. Sometimes it walks into your life holding a pink umbrella in the rain. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's remind the world that love and kindness still win. Before you go, comment below, do you believe second chances can heal even the deepest wounds?